In this next section, what we're going to do is look at how to add a JavaScript file to your theme. Now, the process is actually very similar to the one that we use to add CSS files to our theme, but the rationale behind why you would add a JavaScript file to your theme rather than through a module should be explained. So why would we add JavaScript to a theme? One sort of rule of thumb we can use is to look at whether the JavaScript we want to add adds interactivity that's not necessarily associated with a specific module or a specific module's output. So one example of this is when you click on an input and it changes the color, maybe changes the border color, so that it's easier to see where you are in a form. So for example, this would apply across multiple modules because multiple modules implement forms. So this wouldn't necessarily be something that should be specific to a single module, unless the goal of the module is to supply that functionality. This instead affects the entire theme and is actually very closely associated with the theme since it changes coloring and changes the look and feel of a process. So this is one example where adding JavaScript functionality to the theme makes sense. So when would it make sense instead to move something over to a module instead of a theme? First of all, with a theme, when we add a JavaScript file, just like when we added a CSS file, we don't have a lot of control over when that gets included. It's pretty much across the board that JavaScript file is going to be included on every page. If we instead include the JavaScript file through a module, we can decide which pages or which situations would require that specific JavaScript so we can be more specific. Now we can also alter what JavaScript files are included in the theme by adjusting them in a pre-processing function, but it adds an extra step, whereas with a module we would just have a single step, some kind of conditional around the include statement. Secondly, if it adds important functionality to a module, but we're putting it in our theme, that means that if we change our theme, some of that functionality will get stripped out of our module. So that might be a better candidate for the module in particular, or possibly an add-on module if we're working with a contributed module. To get started, go ahead and jump to your resource pack directory, and let's go ahead and copy the sixth step, which is bat.js simple.js file. And what we're going to do is then paste this inside of our theme directory. So I'm here at sites, all themes, bat. I'm going to paste it in. And go ahead and rename it bat.js, bat.js. Okay. And then go ahead and open it. Let's take a look at what's inside. So this is a super simple JavaScript file. It's kind of like our CSS file that we used in the previous example. Its goal is to announce itself, to say, hey, I'm being included. So in JavaScript, a handy way to do that is by adding an alert function. And so we're just saying, I'm a JavaScript file being included. So we'll know if the file is actually being included because it will pop up this message. The second step is to add an item line in our .info file to include the JavaScript file. So go ahead and jump back to your resource pack directory and open up the seventh step, which is called adding a JS file. Go ahead and copy the entire code and paste it over the code that's currently in your bat.info file and save it. Now the only line we added is down here at the bottom, the scripts variable, and there's empty brackets here indicating that we're adding to an array. And we're adding the bat.js file to this scripts array. Now this will trigger the theme to include this script on every page on the site. In order to get this to register, just like with our CSS files and our region changes, any changes to the info file, we need to rebuild our registry. So I'm going to jump back to Firefox, and we're going to go ahead and flush all the caches. Okay. Now, as it loaded, it popped up this alert here, which said, I'm a JavaScript file being included. Awesome. So it means this is working. I hit OK, and we can continue on.